Hello everyone, Sean Toole here, property and business investor. Now I am super excited to welcome you to the first ever episode of the MAD podcast. Now MAD stands for Mergers, Acquisitions and Deals. And this is the place where highly successful entrepreneurs and business owners showcase their insider strategies of sourcing, structuring and closing deals. And I'm talking about multi-million pound deals. You're going to find this really interesting and really fascinating, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of value from it. Now, I'm really excited because my first guest is a leader in this space. His name is Steven Eugene Kuhn, and he's going to be talking about how to acquire upfront fees, monthly retainers, and taking equity share in companies that he's helping. I'm sure you're going to find it really interesting and entertaining, and I hope you enjoy it. Hi everyone, it's Sean here, and this is Mergers, Acquisitions and Deals. And with me today, my special guest is Steven Kuhn. Hello, Steven.
Hey, Sean, how you doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, glad to have you here, and really looking forward to this meeting. I know you've got a lot of value and experience to share. So for the listeners, can you just give us an idea, or essentially introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. I'm an American living in Europe. I'm in Hungary right now. I've lived in 9 countries, including America 10, and worked in those countries. I joined the military when I was young, right out of high school, and was stationed in Europe for 8 years. And I ended up just getting out and staying here after I went to Iraq and got out and ended up staying here. And I got into business early. I was always an entrepreneur. So, within 2 years of getting out of the military, I had a cocktail bar in Berlin, Germany. And then I ended up having 2 more and a nightclub. And then I got headhunted by a British PLC to help expand their brand into Europe, which I did. And I worked on and off for them as an entrepreneur. I was I guess you could say, a contracted GM, a contracted, as a operations development director for Europe. Headed up joint ventures, did a lot of like real business, in the corporate world. In the PLC, it's a little different. And then we delisted. There was an MBO, and I sort of lost everything when it comes to that. But then they broke up the company, and I got, they brought me back to Portugal and then to Spain, and just all these different countries. And through that, I ended up just being the turnaround guy. So everything that we had opened up over the years needed, readjusting, because when management systems are changed, the results change. Sometimes up, sometimes increase, sometimes decrease. So I ended up setting up, sales structures, management structures, training structures, and I was training the entire 3,500 staff. I'd fly to location to location. That was when people did that.
Yeah.
And it was back I started in '98. So I got out of the military in 1993, got out in 1998, started with the corporate world as a freelancer or contractor. And I just kept, going on and on. And then I just, whatever I was doing was a turnaround. People would see that and say, how did you do that in such a short period of time? And I would focus on things like, well, people, procedures, and structures. Do you have the right people with the right procedures and the right structures? Are they in place? And then how do you keep that going? And all that led me to, I cut a lot out, like working for celebrities and musicians and megastars and politicians. But what that led me to do is have a really rounded knowledge about how to turn a business around. But not only that, but how to collaborate with other businesses, how to form joint ventures. The quickest way to scale a company is to, collaborate or merge. And people often mix up scaling and growth. Growth is getting bigger, more revenue with cost, and scaling is the same thing without cost. And so there's terminologies out there that are often misunderstood or used as the same thing. People say grow and scale. Well, it's either growth or scale. It's growth with cost or scale without cost. So these are all the things that I then brought into the M&A space. And it was quite interesting because M&A until that time, at least to my knowledge, was go out, find a company, buy it, and build it up, and then exit or whatever it is that you do. And me, I look at it a little differently when it comes to M&A, but we can get into that in a minute.
Sure. That's sounds like you've got a really diverse background, especially the
Yeah,
military. So it's amazing.
it's a little ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I never really. I mean, I've I was bodyguard for Mick Jagger, and I worked for Andrea Bocelli. I worked for politicians. I helped found a political organization. It's just everywhere, all across the map. But it always had to do with people, and it always had to do with bringing the best out of those people. So for me, I always ended up being the turnaround consultant slash coach, because consulting almost always turns into coaching. Because when you start with a consulting gig at a company, you speak to the CEO, the owners, the leaders, and they have a perceived problem. And that perceived problem is typically structural, or it's personnel, HR, or whatever. But there's actually, if there's a problem in the company, there's always a problem with the leader. And I don't want to say problem, let's say challenge with the leader. And so that consulting would gain their confidence with me. And then I could switch over and say, okay, now let's talk about the issues, the challenges that you're having. And that would really boost the company. So yeah, it's been very diverse, but through that diversity, I'm able to coach and train and consult companies like very few others, in my opinion.
So that sounds great. Now, I know you've got a couple of case studies that you wanted to share with us. Would you like to start with the first one?
Sure. So again, I look at M&A different. I don't look to acquire companies. First of all, all of this, what I've said and more, and what I'm going to say, came out in a book, and it was called Unleash Your Humble Alpha. Let me, if I can promote that real quick. Unleash Your Humble Alpha.
And the book, it's great, Steve. Really.
Thank you. And one of the key factors in there is called creating space. And creating space is showing up wholly and fully for the person or the people in front of you with no preconceived notions or cookie cutter solutions, with one intention and one intention only, and that is to add value by solving problems, right? I have no expectations. I cannot control the outcome. I can only control the intention, right? So this is how I approach every single deal, every single telephone, every single, like this call right now, no expectations. And what happens then is I dig deep and find their issues. What do they actually need? So let me give you an example. So I had a call from a friend in Austria and said, hey, I got this friend who needs to manufacture his products in America. And could you talk to him? Because you're American. So, obviously, because I'm American, I don't have all the answers for American businesses. But I talked to the guy, and I listened, and I heard what he said and what he meant. And he needed three things. He needed a distributor in America to distribute his product, but he needed a manufacturer to manufacture it first in America, because he wanted to do government contracting, and you need to have American manufactured weapons or products, weapons. It was weapons. It was 9mm. And then he needed, of course, a government contractor. So that was our first discussion. So I said, okay, give me a couple of days. I'll come back to you. And typically what an M&A person will do is, okay, these guys want to scale. They want to sell part of their company for me to help them bring them to America. And so a typical M&A guy would start making a deal. Okay, this deal, but I don't make deals until I have the solutions. So I went out and I found a distributor, a manufacturer, and a government contractor. And then I came back and I talked to them. I said, this is the product. Can you do it? Yes. Are you interested? Yes. What would it cost? How would it be? This and that. And I came back and I said, okay. He actually drove here to Hungary. He's from Austria. And we sat down at a table across the street at a restaurant. And he said, okay, what's the deal? I said, I got this, that. And he said, do you have it already? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. And he said, okay, so what's the deal going to look like? And so I set up a deal, upfront fee for the introductions to those guys, a commission base on all of the sales that they make through my third-party introductions, for which I got paid, and I got equity in the deal, right? So that's a perfect example of how I can get equity in a company, I can get an upfront fee, and I can get commission. So I have a short-term revenue, I have a mid-term revenue, and then a long-term revenue is the equity. And I usually cap that at 3 years option to sell it back. So I can exit after 3 years. That's in my agreement. And another thing I do is I have a one-page agreement. I write down what I want and all this kind of stuff, send it to them. And typically they then provide all of the paperwork. So I don't have any costs for lawyers either. And when I bring it back, there's a few paragraphs that I submit and say, this is what I want in, this is what I want in. So I want the dragon tag, I want the 100% agreement with all of the equity holders and not just me as a minority or whatever. And those things I make sure is insulted. So I have money up front, money midterm, money long-term, exit strategy, and I do none of the paperwork.
I mean, that's fantastic. Can you just give us a timescale of how long that kind of deal took from that first introduction to actually sealing the deal and doing the paperwork?
Maximum 4 weeks. Maximum four. And this is the key. Everything that I said doesn't matter unless I have solutions, right? So
Yeah.
if I don't have solutions, none of that's going to happen. So if I present the solutions to their known problem, then they're going to say, let's get started. Let's do this. He actually had the money with him here and paid me the upfront fee in cash. I wasn't expecting it. He goes, okay, let's sign it. I said, well, I have to draft the agreement. He goes, like, I'll wait here. Go do it. I walked across the street, went back over. He handed me cash, and we were done. So it was exciting. Yeah, it was exciting.
It's really good. Really, really good story. You know, well, one of the lessons I've learned from you, Stephen, I know we speak regularly, and one of the most powerful lessons that I learned from you was this mindset of going into these types of negotiations where you really don't need to know all the answers. You just need to know someone who does, an expert in that niche. Is that how where did you get that concept from? Is that something you've just learned as you've gone along?
Well, for me, it was easy. For me, I focus on the internal. So if I'm feeling unsure because I think I need to know the answers in a meeting, they're going to feel that insecurity. They're going to feel it. So for me, it's all about that energy. How can I go to a meeting and have no expectations, no worries, no thoughts, no fears, no wants, no wishes, and create that space around the two of us or the four of us or however many it is, so that everyone's at ease. And the way to do that is, okay, I don't need to have all the answers. I just need to know someone who does. And anyone with a network or any even a small network will always find someone with answers. So for me, it's a no-brainer to walk into a meeting. I don't want to say I don't care, but I don't care. You know, if it doesn't close, it doesn't. But you know what? For instance, I had this deal. It was a $20 million acquisition. It was a $5 million up front and $15 million over 3 years revenue, deferred revenue payments, and the $5K up front we were going to use through a CD option where I put down 500,000 and we get the 5 million, use that, and then generate revenue. We'll pay the rest, 15 million over 3 years. But I didn't have the 500,000, liquid. So I found another investor who said, yeah, I'll take 6% as a silent investor to pay that 500K to get to 5 million to buy the company, right? Well, it didn't work out because a big company decided to merge them into their, absorb them because they already had everything they needed. And so when the deal died, they told my partner, hey, it's over. But they told me, they said, can we talk to you separately? And we did. And they said, we still want you to work with us because of the results you provided, the solutions you provided. We still need those solutions. Can you stick with us? So I actually talked to them yesterday, and we're making a deal for equity and commissions for the introductions that I make. So you see, because I was solving their problems, the deal didn't die for me. It's just a different deal. That's all. I don't own the company outright, but I have a piece of equity of a $1 billion company.
Fantastic. I mean, and it's about solving problems essentially. That's what we're doing here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all. That's what you do every day in every part of your life. We're all salespeople. And we're all problem solvers. That's it. Every day, everything you do, everywhere you go, whatever it is, you're always solving problems and selling something.
Okay. And did you say, was that your second case study, or did you have another one that you wanted to share?
Well, I can do one more. So there was a startup, or a re-startup. This guy had a company, and then he closed it down for personal reasons, and he wanted to start it up, but he needed some sort of seed capital. And it wasn't that much. It was 5 figures, but it wasn't that much. And so I said, okay, I can give you that. I want 30% of the company. And I don't want any operational influence, because that's my big thing. I don't want to put work on top. For the first 4 months, I'll talk to them once a week for an hour, and it'll just be pure input. Like, okay, you got to do this, that. What about this? What about that? And then they go away and do whatever they got to do. The next week we review what they did between last meeting and this meeting, what we're going to do between this meeting and next meeting, and then of course the action plan. And so he said, okay, 30% is fine. And I said, but I want my money back in 4 months. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, let's do it. So he had to seed capital. I got my money back in 4 months, and to this day, I still have the 30% of the company. So I paid nothing for that company, nothing. And I gave him an interest-free loan, of course. So it was, for him, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. It allowed them to get from where they were to where they really wanted to be. So that was right. That's a great deal.
And it was easy money. You didn't have to fill out any applications, didn't have to sign any, big fat documents and all this kind of risk, and no personal guarantee, nothing. I just said, all right, I'm going to loan it to you.
And this thought that you just shared with us about not having operational duties. And that's just a time saving thing, isn't it?
For me, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I don't want to buy a job. I don't want to invest in a job. I mean, if I'm going to invest my time, I want to get paid for it. And that's why if I have equity in the deal and no retainer, or because sometimes I'll get, like, I have a deal in Australia where I have 30%, I think 30%, and profit share and a monthly retainer because I work with her actively. So I work once a week for an hour, like I said, and I'll do that for 4 months in the beginning, and I get paid for that. As soon as that's done, talk to me once a month for an hour if you need me. Otherwise, they usually don't call me. There's companies I've had for 4 years that I haven't talked to them, and just once a year at the end of the month, end of the year when the check comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fine for them because they know they have me if they need me. And hey, we just came out with a new product. Can you help us land it in Costco or Walmart or whatever? And I'll just call up my guys. Do you want it? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Here, talk to each other. See you later. Done. So I don't want any operational responsibility in the company,
Yeah.
unless I know that my solutions can bring massive value. Then why, right? Why would I?
Yeah. So is there any things that you'd, having done what you've done, is there any things you do differently going into these negotiations? Or have you just kind of tweaked it as you go along and now you're getting it right as opposed to no?
Yeah, because I was in the military, got out and did my stuff, worked in the corporate world, got my MBA in Bradford University School of Business Management in the UK. Didn't teach me anything about M&A. It only taught me about leveraging debt and the typical classic ways. And as a guy who never grew up in that world, never had access to that kind of money, like how do you get started, right? So I started little by little, and only last year, almost a year and a month ago, I took an actual course on it. And that taught me some things that I didn't know before. So that really, I probably would have taken the course earlier, would have got educated earlier on it, and not just the classic education. I think, knowledge is great. Knowledge is key. Knowledge is important, but applied knowledge is where the value is. You can have, and I'll give you an example, like college professors and entrepreneurs. College professors are nicely paid. They have tenure and everything, but entrepreneurs out earn college professors by crazy percentages because they have applied knowledge. And that's also the issue with people getting out of college. They think, okay, I have all this knowledge now, give me a good job. And they're like, well, you don't know anything. You have knowledge in your head, but it's not ordered, it's not implemented, it's not applied. So when I can pay you that much, you get started, learn, and then maybe we'll see if we can keep you on and you bring you on. And that's the big misconception in the world. They think that a degree makes you smart. It doesn't. It just fills your head with knowledge. Matter of fact, the MBA that I did was great. It was one of the top MBAs in the world. But all it did was slow me down for almost 2 years as an entrepreneur, because it taught me to stop using my intuition, stop going with my gut, and analyze the heck out of everything. So, paralysis, just total paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that was, there'll be people listening to this that are active in the sector, so maybe you could address them, but people that are trying to get into mergers and acquisitions, what would your biggest piece of, gold dust, if you like, a bit of knowledge that help them to do that?
I would grab a course, a real course of someone who's active out there that's accessible. The biggest thing that I saw when I was choosing a course, and I looked at many, was the accessibility of the people that were teaching it. And I landed with Jeremy Harbour. Yeah. And he's got a very specific way to teach, but he was accessible. You could talk to him. And for me, that was very important. The other guys were all, you couldn't even find an email, or you couldn't get a hold of them. They had books and everything, but courses, but it was all sort of like ClickFunnels kind of stuff. And it just didn't have that genuine, authentic feel to it. And when I met Jeremy's team, they were wide open. Yeah. And so, get a course under your belt ASAP, because once you learn it, and it doesn't mean you have to do M&A. I think any entrepreneur, every entrepreneur should take that class. Because as a turnaround consultant for all those years, if I'd have known then what I knew after that course, it's a different life, a whole different life. There was chances where I could have bought a company. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. There were so many possibilities out there that you don't know. They say the more you know, the more you learn, the less you know, right? But in this case, the more you learn, in this case, it's so applicable in your career as an entrepreneur. It's just ridiculous. A lot of these guys, like, digital marketing agencies, they tell me, I can't get any clients. My prices are too high, but I can't go lower because of my costs. And I'm like, well, why don't you just offer a lower fee, just a little bit, and take some equity? I'm like, what? Because that's how I started. That was my first M&A deal. Was like, look, you can't afford me. Okay, I'll knock it down this much, but I want 5% equity. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, great, do it, done. And so I had, before I even started with Jeremy's firm, I think 11 companies. I had 5 to 7% equity in these companies, just because they didn't want to pay the higher fees that I had, and they just paid me less and gave me equity. I was fine with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the education is really important.
Yeah.
I've done Jeremy's course, Jeremy Harvey, and I thought it was great. I've learned so much, and you become part of that network that's even, certainly as valuable, isn't it?
Yep. It's amazing. I mean, honestly, if I knew then, oof, man, I'd be.
Yeah.
But I have no regret. It's because of what I did that I can do what I do now. So it's fine.
Yeah, but we're all here at just the right time, perhaps. Okay, well, Steven, it's been amazing. Listen to you. I appreciate you spending your time. So how can people get hold of you?
Well, they can get a hold of me. Our website is humblealphabook.com. There you can reach out to us, so you can see the book. You can get it on Audible. You can get it on iTunes. You see a bunch of reviews there. You see a bio from myself and my business partner / co-author. And just reach out there if you want. If you're on, Clubhouse at Steven Kuhn, or if you're on LinkedIn, Steven Eugene Kuhn. Facebook, same thing, Steven Eugene Kuhn.
Okay, brilliant. We'll finish there. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you allowing me to pass along my applied knowledge.
Thank you. We love that. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Steven. He really is getting some amazing results and has become a leader in the mergers and acquisitions space. Our next episode is with Daniel Kepker. Now, Daniel is in the construction sector, same as me, and he has 2 case studies that he's going to be looking to share with us. So look out for that, the next episode of the MAD podcast coming every Wednesday. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you'll get, I'll ring the bell, by the way, and you'll get updates every Wednesday as they come live for more mergers, acquisitions and deals. Bye for now.